So glad you're with us. This is the Kirby on Sports podcast. As we are in studio, the Icon Media Studios in the heart of Winchester, Virginia. And what a better place to do something like this than to be talking with the head basketball coach of the John Handley Judges, Zach Harrell-Zook, taking his Handley team to the state championship. They defeated the Hampton Crabbers down in Richmond, securing their first state title in school history. I know it's probably been very busy for you recently, but glad we were able to do this, Zach. And how's everything going? I know it's sort of in the lull, but you're keeping busy with numerous other ventures and celebrating a state title, which I'm sure a lot of people are still celebrating to this day.
Yeah, when you say busy, it's just, kind of working to coordinate with everyone and, making sure that we honor everyone and do all the things that we want to make sure that we do to pour back into the community that poured back into, that poured into us for so long and so hard and so passionately. Handley Pride's a real thing. And I think anyone that was down at VCU saw that and saw all the maroon, that took over the Siegel Center there. And so, trying to make sure we do things right and plan things accordingly. And we had our parade on Monday, and I mean, we've been, overwhelmed with, the amount of, restaurants and businesses that have reached out offering to do things for the team. And we're working on getting rings ordered here in the next day or two. So, looking to get those by the time these guys go off to school so that, we can have a nice little ring ceremony, invite everyone from the town and, from north end, south end, west end, east end, every part of Winchester City to get everybody out there. But I think one of the coolest things we did was when we did our parade, just going around the block at Handley, and we had time to plan it because a lot of people stayed down in Richmond that night after the game, and we came back and there were some people that greeted us at the school. But giving those kids the opportunity to come in and get autographs from the guys and meet the players, and that inspires that next generation of players. And, those guys get to see the impact that they had outside of bringing the first state title to the program, seeing the impact it's going to have on future generations. So, yeah, it's been busy, but busy is always a good thing, never a bad thing.
You mentioned in the press conference, I want to start here with after the game, you defeated Hampton, which it seemed like a lot of people were like mixed, like because Hampton on paper looked so good, but you all came in, did what you needed to do. You mentioned in your press conference that a win like this does so many things to the town of Winchester. Elaborate more on what that means, what this state title has done for the town of Winchester.
Yeah, I just think that, I think 103 years is just a really long time, and knowing that this was our fifth time there. And I mean, my first year, we got to the state final, actually hosted it at Handley during COVID, which was, just a completely and totally different environment. But, it was our fifth time being at the game, and, 5 trips in 103 years is not a lot to begin with. And just capitalizing on that moment and just, hearing from people that have been around the town for so long, and, it's every year they're just looking forward to, like, do we have a chance? Could this be the year? And then when it finally happens, just what that means to everyone that's been a part of Handley, been a part of the Winchester community, for so long, or is just growing up in it now. The impact that it has, truly just galvanizes the spirit of the entire community and just, brings those dreams and hopes and desires that everyone's had for so long that, we can finally do this thing, in boys basketball. And, our games are, always really close to, sold out, if not sold out, depending on the opponent we play. And, people care about watching basketball, and they care about watching Handley play basketball. And so for us to finally deliver on that, it means so much to so many people. And I think our guys have really been able to see the gravity of that and how many lives that it's touched. So.
In the thing too, reaching the pinnacle of high school basketball with a state championship, obviously, but the work probably started about a year prior, because this is a program that you set in place that's run, and you said this, 365 days a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest adjustments we've had right now is that, like, how long of a break do we have before we get back going? Because, in a few weeks we start the Capital Hoop Summer League down at DeMatha, and we'll be playing against WCAC opponents like right away. And, last year we played Good Counsel, DeMatha, Westfield, like these teams, that are really good programs, but also Westfield, who ends up winning the Class 6 title. Like that game helped prepare us 9 months before the event when we're going into overtime with Westfield at DeMatha. And we actually, in that game too, when we played them at Capital Hoop Summer League last year, we were up 2, and actually we had some fouls to give, and I was telling our guys to foul, and we didn't foul. The kid ends up hitting a game-winning 3-pointer. And so from that moment forward, we called our foul scenario Westfield. And so when everyone knew I said Westfield, it meant we're fouling. And so just like those moments, like everything that you do, like this, these things don't come to life right away. They take time. And, I'd even argue past a year, building up for this. Like there's things we learned from the Verona game last year. There's things that these kids have been working on, since they started playing basketball at Danny Morgan Middle School, which was, the first year that we took over. So, this is a group that won. This group of seniors, obviously, huge underclassmen impact as well, with what Braun doing and guys like Silas Miller, Timmy Campbell and stuff that helped us out this year. Asher Madison, who, shot 58% from 3 as a freshman with over 80 attempts. So, we had some underclassmen help as well, obviously, but these seniors have won over 75 games, throughout their time at Handley in those 4 years. So they've been a part of those environments. They've been to the state tournament 3 times. And so, the culmination of all those events, all of that, those tough schedules, those, high-end summer leagues, like all of these things that we do, East Coast live period events in summer, all of those things just, permeate the ability to execute in that moment. And that's exactly what those guys did. And I know you talked about Hampton, and like, man, Hampton was really, really good. I remember I was texting Ed Young at like 4 a.m. the night before the game, and I texted Ed and I was just like, Ed, Hampton's like really good, man. He was like, you don't have to tell me, I know, man, I live down here. He's like, you guys are good too. I said, no, I know we're good. I'm just telling you, like, they're really good. And, thankfully we had a week to prepare, and, we were able to get over to Shenandoah University, practice all week, get used to the 94-foot floor. And, we had a full week to install our game plan, and the guys couldn't have executed it any better.
Yeah, and we'll get to more of that down the line here. But you mentioned the preparation, all the summer leagues and stuff, and the road throughout the course of the high school regular season. I would imagine in your mind was not the easiest as a coach, with some of the adversity that you had to deal with, testing your team in the Arby's Classic, and you had a couple losses here and there, and some players not able to play due to injury, obviously, but it seemed like all that adversity in the end snowballed up in a positive way that rewarded this team, this community, with a state title.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is the ultimate lesson of sports, right? Is how do you respond? How do you handle adversity, right? It's why so many companies like hiring athletes, right? It's because they've been a part of teams. They've been a part of wins. They've been a part of losses. They've been a part of failure, and they've grown out of those things. And, if you walk in our locker room right now, I'm biased as a UVA fan, but I think the story is just, one of the best stories in the history of sports. But, a lot of programs have pillars, like integrity, pride, right? Like, all of these things, programs have pillars. We use quotes. I think quotes just offer like much more deeper meaning. And one of the quotes in our locker room is that if you use adversity the right way, it will buy you a ticket to a place you couldn't have gone before without it. And that's the exact speech that Tony Bennett gave after UVA lost to UMBC the year they were the 1 seed and lost to the 16 seed. And then what did that team go do? They won the national championship the next year. But the pressure, everything those guys dealt with. And, I was someone that I almost felt a part of that journey with them, because when I was at Roanoke College, my college coach, Paige Moyer, who was the president of NABC at the time, he had me work UVA's camp every summer. And I started working camp when Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome, Mamdi Diakite, they were all freshmen. And so I got to kind of see their entire evolution, and, by no means comparing, our program to a college Division I program that won a national title. But the story just kind of lining up where it took time to build up. They did it the right way. They handled some adversity, right? Last year we lost the state semi on our home floor after being up 8 with 9.5 minutes to go, right? And so we kind of experienced a very similar path of adversity, and then the adversity that came within the season, was very, very tough. When you lose someone that was on track to become the Virginia high school all-time leading scorer, unequivocally, like 2 games into your season, it shakes your group up a little bit, especially when you have those goals and this is what we want to do at the team. So we had to completely shift our focus from looking at our ceiling only and focus on raising our floor every single day. And it's going to look different, maybe how the ball goes in the hoop or maybe what we do, but what can't look different is our standards. And we have to continue to raise our floor every single day. So, I mean, this group used the adversity the right way. And without adversity, you can't build a team that can execute in those moments and be prepared in those moments, right? The whole goal of going down and challenging ourselves and playing Oak Hill and John Zito was that the message after that game was you're never going to play a team for the rest of the season, even if you make it to the state championship game, that has more talent and is better than this team. So you will be more prepared, well-equipped to handle any team that comes your way, right? And then a few weeks later, you played Denby, who I thought had some of, if not the best guard play in the entire state, right? And so that's another game that prepares you for that path, right? You got your local rivalry games that are going to bring big crowds, right? Rivalry games are always going to be close and intense, and you lose a game at home to Millbrook, and that kind of really set us at a spot where we had to really reflect and shift our focus. Like, hey, we got so focused on the ceiling that we stopped focusing on raising the floor every single day. And your ambitions can never be stronger or higher than your foundation is strong enough to support. And we had to get back to focusing on our foundation and building our foundation back up and getting 1% better in every category that we know is important every single day. And these guys, more than anything, handled adversity better than any game plan they executed or anything. They handled adversity better than any group I've been with or seen.
And to piggyback off that too, some of the players who you needed to step up, one person in particular, Asher Madison, that must have been a tremendous help for you with the situation that you had throughout the season and with the talent in the future come next year and the year after.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of people may not even know, but I mean, at the beginning of our year, Asher was 14 years old. Right. And he's 14, he's going through growing pains. He's having issues with his hip, and like Asher needed time. And of course, what helped him was that, we played 30 games and, from May to September, and we played, good competition. And he got a lot of experience playing those games. I know he plays high level, travel ball and stuff. And, he's playing with Team Mello right now on the YBL circuit, but he needed time, right? He was 14, and so him building himself up and coming in and buying in every single day, like, when Will went down, it's like, we don't need you to be Will, we need you to be Asher. And same thing with Christian. Christian, we need you to be Christian. Javon, we need you to be Javon. Kyron, we need you to be Kyron. Isaiah, we need you to be Isaiah. And boy, do we love Isaiah, right? And so everyone just excelled and became even better at who they are as a person and what they can do for the program. And every single person's role didn't necessarily elevate in terms of we need you to do more in all of these categories. We just need you to enhance your performance character even more. We need you to have more impactful leadership, and we need you to contribute every single day to continuing to build the championship culture that we know that we have to have. Like, one person down means that one role has been eliminated, but we still have all the other people that are here in the building. And all of you have to be better at who you are every single day. And all of those guys collectively, stepped up and did that. And, Asher being able to come in, with obviously, when you lose Will, you're losing that outside shooting, that scoring, that 90+% at the foul line, right? All of these things that go into that, the ability to draw double teams, come off the ball. Now we're playing 4-on-3 with an advantage. However, when Asher was able to come in and contribute the way he did, he added space to the floor that was missing, right? Because, with Will, we were basically going to plan on doing a 3-man rotation at point guard with Javon, Will, and Christian. So when the Will went down, that really put us not even in a 2-man spot, in a 1-man spot, because the logic in having, Christian at the point guard with Javon and Will on the floors, now you have your best driver, your best athlete, right? Your best finisher at the rim with space because he has 2 shooters on the floor. Now, if Javon's at the point guard, now you have your shooters bringing the ball up the floor. And now you have your best driver who could be denied in limited touches. So we had to put Christian at the point guard. And then for a few games, as we're still getting Asher going, Javon was mainly the one out there that was, creating that space from outside. And then when Asher continued to work and he got to the point where we felt confident, he even earned a starting role for significant portions of the season there. And so credit to him, credit to all the guys that were able to come in and just be who you are as best as you can be. And that's what they all did.
So we talked about the regular season and into the playoffs. That state championship game, I'm sure a lot of things probably won't top that. But what were some other moments throughout that playoff push that was really meaningful to this team?
I think just in every single game, the teams we played, leading up to that, and through Hampton, our opponents were 90-6. Our last 4 games, there were 90-6 on the year, and all of them were on at least 18+ winning streaks. And so they were all, as a program, you want to peak late, you want to be at your best as a team in February. All these teams were at their best in February. EC Glass was undefeated. We're going into their place. It is a sold out environment, and just all of those games, I felt like at some point had moments where, okay, something just went south, right? Adversity hit. Maybe it's a turnover. Maybe it's a 6-0 run for them. Maybe it's something, and they just didn't lose their composure, right? They kept plugging away. They kept chucking away. Verona, we're down 5, and we're I think even down 7 at one point, and just never lost face. Steps, kept on going with everything that we knew we needed to do to win the game, and that they just kept so much poise and composure because, 1, they believed in themselves. 2, they believed in the staff. 3, they believed in the game plan. And 4, they believed in what they all could collectively do together throughout the course of a full 32 minutes. And they never let a 30-second spurt or one turnover or some moments throughout a game, get them down to the point where they would lose track of, we are going to win this game over the course of 32 minutes. And it's one possession at a time, and every possession culminating together is going to produce an outcome that we know that can win, and we have to stay focused on that. We have to stay poised. And I just think, Broad Run, they went on a run. They were up at portions of the time. Verona were down 5, going down the glass. And, that game got to the point where, we were down a half, but then we're trading blows and buckets. And then, that game's coming right down to the wire to, a 3-point attempt from them that goes off the front iron, that if that goes in, we lose the regional championship. And, now we're traveling to play on the road at Heritage, and we got 3, postseason games going to the state tournament. So all of those moments, I think, were just additional tests, additional battles, additional adversity that this group overcame. And I think the reason that, we always talked about, throughout the year, just we just didn't feel like we ever put that game together. We're just every single person that hit the floor played their best game. And that's what the state final was. Every single person played their best game. And I think that, we just said that, there was never a game that we just blew it open. And, the state final was the game to do it. And, I think it was just the culmination of all of those battles and adversity and things that we overcame. And then when we got to that moment, it's it's not a test anymore. It's the game. The tests are done. And, we're more than prepared for it. And now it's just time to go out and finish the job.
I found it really unique and interesting, I would imagine, as a well-known basketball coach. You make a lot of connections in the area, and I did see your conversation on X with your friend DJ down at EC Glass.
Yeah, good.
Talk about the game leading up to the game. I'm like, man, a mutual respect between those two, you two, and just battling it out. Just the connections like DJ and the others that you have, just it makes a playoff run seems like, you have one common goal, trying to get to a state final, but you have that mutual respect, that trying to get each other better when you're out of season, I would imagine. Just take me through those type of connections throughout the run as well.
Yeah, I think that, coaches respect, other coaches that have respect for them, and we respect great programs, and, relationships are everything in any line of work. And, I have a lot of respect for, Coach Best and DJ and the job he does there at EC Glass. And, I've helped his kids before. He's helped our kids before. Like, he's calling me the other day about a kid he has in the transfer portal, knowing that I could help him. And earlier this season, I'm reaching out to him about, Javon, who was really interested in Virginia Union. And I know DJ sent someone to Virginia Union a few years ago, Madre Harris, who scored way too many points on us a few years ago in a state quarterfinal down there at Heritage Lynchburg. And like, I just respect good coaches. And, DJ and I have the relationship to understand that, we both love playing quality teams. We both love playing, highly competitive bump in basketball. And, I just respect the job he does, because I know that he does everything the right way, and he pours into his program. And, and so, we have a little playful and fun banter, and we kind of joke around. And, but we also know that, like, when the game starts, it's war, and like we were joking before the game about, preparing for each other and, how hard it's going to be. And, we were joking about, how long our practices were. And he texted me and he was like, did you see the Heritage Broad Run game? Because that one, like, came down to the wire. And I was like, it was like 11 o'clock at night. I was like, no, I haven't seen it yet. We're still in the gym. I think we might just camp out tonight. We're still going over your game plan, just messing with him and stuff. And so, no, man. And DJ and I have, a relationship enough to know, like, as soon as that ball tips off, like, we're going to war. And, I told him, I said, first dunk Christian has, I'm going to look over at you and let you know we're down here and we're here, and, by the same token, he's going to do the same thing. And it's, when you have that, you don't have a program that good if you're not a competitor, right? And you have to be a competitor, but we also have to understand we're all in the business of helping kids and being a part of kids, especially at such a critical point in their lives. And so, obviously a lot of respect for DJ, the program he has, and, we, respect us, we're going to respect you, and, we're going to respect everyone. There's always going to be programs out there that don't see that, as the way that they operate, and they have success, with their programs, with the way that they operate, and, kind of remaining isolated, seeing everyone as an enemy. And of course, everyone's an enemy when the ball tips off, but, we're all in this together, and we all coach, and, we're all trying to help kids and, do far more for them in their lives than just, teach them how to shoot a ball, put it in the hoop, or guard someone. So, those relationships are everything.
So what I think was pretty cool too, you had one home state game before going to Varina and then VCU. Getting that one home game, how meaningful was that? Because I know that crowd, there was a line out the door. I got in there early because as you know, we were covering your state run, the playoff games with all the local teams that were in the area, but just line out the door, fans are going nuts, crowds chanting when they know you have the game won against Broad Run. But just in general, how huge is a home state game in your mind?
Yeah, anytime you can play at home, it's home, and it feels like home to you. And, that being said, like, we knew that there were going to be a limited amount of how many of those we got this year. And with the state tournament bracket flipping this year, last year we hosted the state semis. This year was Region AB's turn to host the semis. So, and also, I think that if, we'd have gotten the opportunity to host Varina, again, I think we'd have turned it down. Like that game was that personal for us. Like, we wanted to go there. We wanted to go down. We wanted to play in Richmond, and our goal was to be in Richmond back-to-back weekends. And, all summer long we worked and we knew what we had to do to overcome beating Varina, and just, it's going to feel better, doing it down there than it would have at home. But just having that home game to, zero in on and focus on, like, hey, we know this is going to be our last time at home, and, we don't want our season to end tonight. We want to keep battling. We want to keep this thing alive longer. And, anytime you can play at home, it's fantastic, because, you get all your community there, and, you get to play in your home and your environment. But, we were certainly prepared and ready to go on the road this season. And outside of Denby, I was very strategic in scheduling very tough road games to try to prepare us for the path that we knew we had potential to go down.
So then you have the game against Varina, as we alluded to earlier, because the year prior they came up to your place and you had the lead, you all fell. But again, just I know we sort of painted the picture on that game, but just how meaningful was it to go down there and get that job done? Because I know how much of a bitter taste the year before left in with this team.
Yeah, and I think also too, like, I'm the president of the Coach Association. Like I know about, all the programs around the state and who's going to be good. And, when I originally took the job, at Handley 6 years ago, that was, I think the year prior, Verona had come down from Class 5 to Class 4. And I knew as soon as I took over the program that you are never going to win a state title in Virginia in Class 4 unless you can beat Verona. And so I knew that for us, like, we had to be very strategic about how do we build a program that can beat them, right? Because they're going to have elite athletes. They're going to have a lot of talent, right? They're going to have a mentality that as soon as that ball tips off, they want to come out and they want to dominate you. And so we had to elevate, our sports performance, and, using James Frisbee and fast training was absolutely critical for that. Like, we had to get, we may not be able to supersede athleticism, but we have to close that gap. And we have to equalize that. And then we have to find other ways to separate ourselves against them in other capacities. So we spent so much time, and we're talking 6 years of morning workouts, opening the gym every morning to focus on shooting. And you don't just get 52% from three in a state final without developing it. Everything you want to see exist in your program has to be developed. So if we wanted the skill, if we wanted the physical, athleticism and the bodies and the, guys to have the, traits to be able to handle programs like that and kind of even out, you have to invest in that. So, we use fast performance. And then we also have to have what we feel like is leadership, connectivity, and culture that is going to help us overcome that. And, we use Lead 'em Up for that for the last 4 years. So, us buying into knowing that if this is ever going to be done, you have to get past them. There's no path. And so we just really bought into every facet of developing every area that we felt like would build a program that could beat them. And then doing it down there just sweetens the whole pot.
And then state final against Hampton down in Richmond. What was that experience like, taking the team to VCU where they have all the state final games? It just from my perspective, I know I'm not a coach or anything, but it seems like they treat you very, very well down there.
Yeah, no, they do a fantastic job, and I think for our guys too, I had to kind of remind them, like, enjoy the moment, enjoy being here, right? Like, and, for most of you, you're seniors, but, I think they were just so ready for the game. I feel like at times it just, like, even the night before, like, I was battling, like, should we go over to VCU and watch a game and get them familiar with them? And, our decision was to, go out and have a team dinner, go back to the hotels, and, let the guys spend that one last night in the hotel talking about how everything they've worked for is about to be right in front of them, but everything they want's on the other side of hard, and they're going to have to give everything they have for tomorrow. And so, I think that, we had to kind of redraw attention to, like, soak in this moment, enjoy everything. But, by the same token, the guys were so lasered in on the task, and obviously it showed in the game. But it's an amazing environment. They do such a tremendous job. The hospitality, the humility, and how they run the event. I mean, it's spectacular, and it was a joy to be a part of.
And obviously defeating the Hampton Crabbers, which is a very tough team. It seemed like your team, and I believe I asked you a question regarding this in the post-game press conference, but just the fact that your team limited their possessions with how much they were moving the ball around the perimeter. And I know the rule is if the player doesn't get too close, the 5-second count doesn't start. Right. No shot clock. So you really use that to your advantage, which I have seen this from your team before. Do you make that a point of emphasis in terms of just passing the ball around and draining that clock to your team's advantage?
Yeah, I mean, you play to win the game, and you put together a strategy that you feel like is going to win the game. And I am one of the biggest proponents of a shot clock and implementing that. And so if you have a shot clock, the strategy and game plan just looks a little different. I mean, I think there were times where they were on offense for over a minute as well because they couldn't, get what they wanted against the different defensive looks that we were doing. And so if you flip it around and we have a shot clock as well, like it'll battle both ends there and it'll eventually even itself out. Like we would have put them in some tough situations with some of the defenses that we ran if they had to get a shot in 35 seconds as well. So we would have forced a lot of tough shots with the defenses that we were playing because we were going to make it hard for them to, execute in that amount of time. So, you play within the rules that you have and you build a game plan that, you feel like can, win the game. And so for us, utilizing the clock and limiting possessions was definitely a priority in the first half, extremely. Number one, because of foul trouble. You got Gavin Key, 6'9". We don't have anyone 6'9". And you got Abraham Taft, who's 6'5", very, very physical, dynamic, 3-level scoring kid that is also a monster on the glass. And so, we had to escape that first half without foul trouble with Christian and Kyron. So we were totally content. I was content with going into the half down at least 8. I'd have felt fine. Like if we're down, I'd have felt fine. Like if we're down 8, 3-possession game, we're good. We're going to be fine in the second half. Because then if we can escape the first half without foul trouble, we can fully unleash the game plan. They don't have halftime to adjust to what we did in the first half. So, we went very mellow, calm, take great shots, force tough ones, value the ball, value good possessions, and, try to force them into the shots that we want them to take and the people that we want to take those shots and work until we get what we want to do for ours, and, a big key for us in that was inverting their defensive front. And so having the 5 for us play point guard, which was Kyron. So, we would enter the ball to, to the bunch, to the point area, however you want to call it, to Kyron, and then Kyron would essentially be our point forward. So we're not going to let Gavin Key sit at the rim all night long, get 20 rebounds, block 7 shots, and contest shots at the rim because we want to get shots at the rim. We want to get open uncontested threes, and we want to get to the foul line. And we felt like our best way to get to the foul line was to pull the bigs out, put the guards in. When we get to the rim, now guards are contesting. And if we have the bigs out on the perimeter, we feel like we can get the penetration versus having to drive by, those elite defenders from the perimeter. So, and that allowed us to, they had to make a decision. Is Key going to come out 40 feet and guard Kyron? Or if he's just going to sit there, then we'll dribble the air out the ball, right, till it stops bouncing, and we'll win the game 2-0. You play to win the game, and you do whatever you have to do that. But making Key and Taft defend on the perimeter and pull them away from the basket was an absolute priority, because if they were underneath the basket, we would have no chance to get offensive rebounds, and it would be a lot harder to finish. And our guards would have to do a lot more work on the perimeter versus we feel like we can get 6 to 8 offensive rebounds if we pull them out, which we did. Guys like Isaiah, Amari, right, Christian, these guys have gotten offensive rebounds for us all year long. And so all of that, you put all that together and you get yourself a game plan that we'll take an open shot with 15 seconds or we'll take an open shot with 90 seconds, but it's going to come our way, and you're not going to dictate what we do. We're going to dictate how you have to guard. So,
and it seemed like dictation was the name of the game. Second half, Hampton was pressing into the front court and just looked like your team really didn't have an issue with what they were presenting at that time.
Yeah, and and we practiced with it. We practiced against it all week long, and I knew in my mind, obviously I coached it to the absolute finish line, and no game is won till the buzzer sounds. But I felt like when they started pressing, we would win the game. Like that is the moment that we'd won the game, because for me, when they got to their press, they realized that our game plan was superseding theirs, and they have to do something different. Now, if you look at someone like Will Braun-Duin, who didn't score a lot in the first half, well, that was because they were largely focused on taking him away. And so guys like Christian, Isaiah, Javon were, living at will and doing a lot of scoring in the first half. But the moment you go to trapping and the moment you go to playing with chaos, you cannot deny Will the basketball if you're trapping and you're playing a chaos game. So I knew when that would happen, that's when we could blow the game open. And so that's when, that fourth quarter, Will really got going. That third quarter, we started attacking those 4-on-3s against the break. But, when you had alumni like us that we had come in and play the press against us all week long, guys like Mike Brown, Solomon Finley, Chad Moore, and, you bring these guys in to simulate their press and prepare for it all week. The guys are prepared for that. We got pressed by EC Glass, Denby, Oak Hill, so we were prepared for that moment. And, we spend a lot of time on press break, and, it's a big part of what we do. Knowing that if you ever get to the stage and you play someone more athletic than you, press is going to come at some point, and those teams aren't going to back down. And that's normally their adjustment. It's ramp up pressure, start trapping. And, we were prepared for that. And I knew that once the game got to that point, we might turn it over 2-3 times. It's going to happen. We'll call a timeout, calm everybody down. But once it got to the point where they were going to press, I knew that was going to really open things for Will, Javon on the outside. And that's what happened.
And it seems like in that state championship game as well, one player, Christian Dinges, you place him on any court, he's going to dunk the ball at least once. And it didn't matter if it was at VCU either. That probably hyped your team up a lot, just him and his athleticism, what he's able to do in that situation.
Yeah, if you ever want like a good laugh or you're just having a bad day, just like go back and watch like our games, and whenever Christian has a dunk, just look at Amari Brown, like just the fire it and light. Like Amari is like Christian's personal hype man when it comes to that. But yeah, those dunks, right? Charges, knocking down threes, like getting on the floor for loose balls. These are all momentum plays in games. And when you have guys like Christian, who state player of the year, and who's able to finish above the rim and give you those moments throughout the games, they just ignite that additional spark in your team in those moments. And so, yeah, he had a couple pretty nice ones.
And just to wrap up the state final run, that buzzer sounded, and obviously there was a lot of emotion coming from you. I know we spoke about that, but how did it feel now that you've had time to reflect? Couple weeks out from the state title, maybe about a month or month and a half. But anyways, what are your emotions after getting that state championship to Handley High School?
The same as they were in that moment. And, for me, those emotions were all about how proud I was of those kids. Not necessarily that we even won the game, but that I was there for all of those moments and all of the hard and the adversity, as well as all of our other staff. Like, I know where they started and I know how they got to their finish line. And so that's what makes me so proud of them. They had every opportunity to cave, to give up, to do these things, right? And they did not do that. Like, throughout the course of their career, they did everything we asked them to do, and they just became such great kids, and obviously now young men. Like, they just became great people. And I got to watch those relationships and their character and their leadership, all of these things just come to life in the way I always envisioned their potential. Like, coaches always talk about, like, man, that guy just had so much potential. Like, I don't have to say that about any of them. Like, they all exceeded their potential. Like, they all just became everything that we wish that they would as a person. And that's what, the emotions for me in that moment was just like, it was just a defining moment of, they finally saw the fruits of the labor, so to speak. Like, they're finally tasting the fruits of their labor for everything that they put in all the time, and not just all the work and, all the basketball devotion, but everything that they did holistically to become the best people that they could be. That was the emotions. I've been there for, I've been in rooms where, these guys are crying and have bad days. And I've been in rooms where they've done great. And, just seeing all of that come to life in that moment, the way you always dreamed about it for them, that is more priceless than winning the state championship. That is what coaching truly is all about. And, I can't wait for their next chapters. I can't wait for them to come home 20 years from now and, go to Piccadilly's or go somewhere, and everyone in town just still, daps them up and remembers them, and, and how it inspires the next generations of kids. And, just so much emotion from just pure joy and happiness at them seeing the fruits of their labor and just seeing them reach everything that we knew that they could be.
And just what does it mean? Because I saw this pop up after, the youngest head coach to win a state title.
To me, what it means to me is that I think all we have as people is our integrity and our word. And, it means to me that I honored my word with Reed Prosser. Not that I would win a state title, but that I would do everything in my power to bring it. And, Reed took risk, so to speak. Anytime you're hiring a 23-year-old with no head coaching experience, like, people are going to naturally question that, right? Especially at a program like Handley that, over the course of that time, has only had 5 head coaches. So I never promised a state title. I promised to give it everything I possibly had in every way possible, not just, coaching basketball, but giving everything I could to the program. And, what it meant to me was just that, I fulfilled that word, not necessarily that promise, but just that word. And, and I know how proud he is of me. And, hopefully, it inspires some, other young coaches and, gets them to apply for jobs. And, age shouldn't matter with any hire. If the best hire is 60, hire the 60-year-old. If the best hire is 25, hire the 25-year-old. Like, hire whoever is going to be best for that program in every single way, and who you believe will do the best job. And what I'll be talking about in a few weeks, actually next weekend, man, time's flying. I'll be out in Lake Chelan, Washington, speaking at Joe Harris's clinic out there. And I know they got a decent young crowd in attendance. Is that, don't focus on what you have done, because it truly doesn't matter at that point. Like, what matters is, what do you plan to do for that program? And that is what you sell. Like, that is the vision that you cast. And, your history gets you in the door, right? Your credentials, all those things get you the interview. But as of next year, right, as I go into our season next year at Handley, the state championship does not matter for that year or the years that come after that, right? It's a part of history now, and you can't hang on to the past. And I'm sure, someone in my situation or something, right, if they have some type of interview, of course they're going to talk about what they did to bring a state title to that program, or experiences that they had at other programs. But what matters is, what are you going to do for me now, right? And I think that's just a big lesson in life too, especially in work. And I think that hopefully it inspires some athletic directors to hear everyone out, give everyone a chance, and hire who you feel like will do the best job for that program, and don't hold experiences that they didn't get before against them. If they got in the door, they're in the same meeting, they're in the same interview process as everyone else. And but more than anything, it just meant to me that I fulfilled my word in terms of giving everything I had, and making Coach Prosser proud of the move that he made.
What's his impact mean to you? Because obviously an AD switch from Reed to Mark Timmons, who has been in the building, but he's still been around coming to basketball games. What's that support meant to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the support from both of them is just a lot of reason that coaches will go different places or it doesn't work out with programs is that lack of connection with your administration. And I don't know if I could be any luckier having both Reed Prosser and then Mark Timmons, not to mention, all of our administrative staff. And, so I think, Susan Brathwaite, who also played basketball at the college level, right. And just understands sports and the bigger picture behind how sports are so influential in education. Right. And so it really doesn't get any better than that for me. And so having both of them, has just been, I just feel a deep level of gratitude, Reed was, at a portion of his career where, it was time to, both his kids are in college. He's been in education for a long space. And, Mark was at the portion of his career too, after Reed's gone, where Mark's ready to really be all in, and he is all in every single way. And he's so unbelievably supportive. And he always, this is the true essence of a great leader is, what can I do for you? And that's something that Mark is always asking, what can we do for you? What do you need? How can we help? And, just to have both of those guys, not to mention that, all of the administrative support that we have and community support at Handley, it's something no one should ever take for granted. I know certainly that I will not. And, but yeah, those relationships, Reed Prosser and, yesterday morning I sent him a clip of, it was Bill Parcells, Just a short little meme on Twitter, and I just texted Rhea, said, "Man, Bill Parcells is so good." He's like, "Buddy, you don't have to tell me. I know." I obviously still talk to both those guys all the time, and couldn't be more grateful to have that type of administrative leadership and support that I have. And that's one thing that I would encourage a lot of coaches, is that grass is not always greener. And if you've got green pastures where you are, like, put roots in the ground.
And so, the culmination, winning a state title, and the one thing I was just thinking, and I know scheduling changes sometimes doesn't work out, but this state title run, I feel like would have been that much more sweeter if you just had another towards the end of the season matchup against Spring Mills again. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, they're a great program. Like, I think that the excitement about playing Spring Mills is the environment, right? Like, obviously, and this is what, a lot of people, didn't understand. And like now, a lot, programs are trying to reach out to us to try to, come play at their events for like a single thing, or like, it's like, our program got to the point this year where, like, we were getting donations, or our program was being paid to come play in events. So it's like, you have to respectfully and with humility, make those hard decisions. Like for us, it was like, we had one game left that originally we were going to do a single with Oak Hill, and that was going to allow us to do a home and home with Spring Mills. And that was, but as a part of the Arby's Classic agreement and, the donation that they gave our program, not to mention, helping cover our hotels and all sorts of incredible hospitality that they did for us with team meals and stuff. Part of the agreement was playing those additional games while we were there versus just coming down to play Oak Hill. So that kind of eliminated, our ability to squeeze those last two games in. I mean, you have your district games that you have to play, that absorb a great amount of your schedule. And, we host the Handley Showcase every year. That wasn't really a great fit to bring them to that, because we wanted to try to return the favor and go play with them and, really try to get like a home and home type environment in. And, so I think for us, like playing programs like that is exciting anytime because of the environment. I do also feel like, though, Denby, we originally had Varina scheduled to play down at the Adam Ward Classic, and they weren't able to make the trip, and so those type of games were going to prepare us for Hampton more than the style of play that I feel like Spring Mills play. But Spring Mills is an incredibly good half court offensive and defensive team. Like they are so good at that, and I felt like, for us from regional, I mean, even Millbrook in the same, like Millbrook plays a fast-paced game. I mean, Riley Baker, Keon, and the Dennis, I mean, these guys can score the ball. And, Coach Green's system is very, very fast. And, it felt like, we're going to go through Millbrook, then to Glass, Varina, and Hampton. Like, these are all going to be fast-paced games if they play the game the way they want to. And so playing the Denbys, playing the Varinas, playing the Oak Hills, playing the Roanoke Catholics, and those that were already kind of built into our schedule was super, beneficial for us, in that regard. But, I mean, playing teams like that, getting those environments for the community, like the community wants to see great basketball. Like that's if you ever have a game and there's like, well, where's everybody at? Well, like, is it going to be a good game? Like if people know it's going to be a good game and it's good competition, like then they're going to come out and they're going to support and they're going to come watch a game for $7 or whatever it is. And so, that's why I'm really pushing for, we have to get a statewide point system in basketball to encourage teams to go and play tough competition so communities can see great games and it doesn't affect your postseason, seeding as much as the current thing does now. Like I was totally content and understood we could go 15-8 this year, looking at our schedule at the beginning of the year. And that might put us at the 4 seed in our district. And we ended up winning a state title, right? But, whereas other programs could not play as nearly tough of a schedule, but because the win-loss record is higher, then like there was a situation where we could have been on the road for 6 straight games in the postseason. like if some of those games didn't go our way, right? And so I think, we've got to kind of model the football system and work to get a statewide point system. And it's only going to increase. This is not even just about programs and postseason seeding and all those things. Like, communities want to see good athletic sport games. And so fostering and putting together environments that don't punish teams for playing tough schedules should absolutely be at the top of our agendas. And for the schools, you're going to get more people in the gate. It's going to help your athletic programs. You're going to be able to provide more things for your kids versus if, you're scheduling games that are automatic wins unless your entire team gets ejected or something happens. Like, those don't necessarily help your team in that moment to prepare for the postseason, other than it's going to help your seeding. But, also the community is not going to be as interested in going to games like that versus the games like, Spring Mill. So I think that those things are all, important kind of tidbits to consider, as we look at, various legislations that, we try to, put forward moving forward.
I don't think I've ever seen a person more involved in basketball than you. And getting to the next portion of our chat, you're staying pretty busy, and I saw some of the work that you've been doing with the All-Star Weekend, the BCAV. First and foremost, looked like a tremendous weekend, getting a lot of athletes from the state of Virginia out, and lucky I was able to be a part of that. But the BCAV, fill us in sort of what that is in your role and what you're doing to be a part of that, because I know it helps basketball, not just in this area, but the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Yeah. So first off, we were lucky to have you, not the other way around. You did a tremendous job with that. It added so much value to the event. And, we're looking forward to, to having you there anytime we're doing events. So second is, the Basketball Coaches Association of Virginia is a nonprofit coaches association designed to, grow the game of basketball in Virginia through player services, player recognition, coaches services, coaches recognition, right? And getting everyone together and everyone, a part of this mission to grow the game. And we serve, all VHSL member schools, boys and girls, regardless of classification. And, our goal with, the All-Star game, so to speak, is create this environment where all 7 conferences throughout the state of Virginia can compete against one another, play in their uniforms one last time, play in front of college coaches if you're an unsigned senior, but just compete to be Virginia's best and create this environment in Virginia where every conference is competing against each other to represent their portion, of the state of Virginia. And so, it's only going to grow over time. And we're really excited about that. Shenandoah University was absolutely tremendous from a hospitality standpoint. Those facilities are better than some Division I facilities. And so it was a great opportunity to host that and kick that off. And, looking forward to just continuing to grow this year over year. We are just shy of 1,000 members currently across the association. And that is with right now only having, we're going to stay pretty committed to public schools, obviously, and serving as a partner with the VHSL, to work together. And that's with only having public schools, and just the high school level right now, plus retired coaches. So eventually we may move into middle school, and trying to, middle schools that are NFHS affiliated with public high schools and working to get middle school coaches, high school coaches on the same page and, and starting that grassroots development even earlier. I think that will only help, grow the game in Virginia. But, our priority has been, getting every school, every VHSL member school signed up for the Coach Association. And, the benefits that come with that I don't think a lot of people even know, but, every coach that signs up for BCAV gets $1 million insurance policy. Like you're for $25 as a single member, you're getting $1 million insurance policy. You are getting constant, content and material. Like our website that is launching likely this Friday in a few days here, right, is going to have a whole back end portal with X's and O's, message boards, scrimmage boards, jobs postings. Like it's going to become your central hub and portal for everything that you need from a basketball standpoint. If I'm interested in seeing team camps, well, JMU, Lynchburg, Randolph-Macon, Roanoke, Virginia Tech, all these programs are members of BCAV. And so it's your opportunity to connect with college programs as well, and just unifying the state of Virginia. Everyone's part of basketball from an NFHS federated standpoint, right? On the, on the public side and at the college level, getting them all together and providing an avenue for them to all collectively grow together. And the mentorship programs that we have, and, aligning young coaches with a mentor and allowing older coaches to mentor youngers. And, we're excited about our retired coaches initiative that we're going to get ready to launch, and scholarship initiatives to help athletes that are going to play at the next level, regardless of if they're playing sports. So, we're 2 years in now, and we've grown really, really fast. And, we need help though. We need help. And, we got 1,000 members in the organization, and, we got an executive board and everything, but everything every coach does, there's never any shortage of help when you are running, an operations trying to service an entire state, and, has a cause like we do.
So All-Star games, you think it went well in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we did a great job, I think, trying to accommodate for travel times and different things. And next year, what I'd like to do on Sunday is, have a little, best Virginia versus West Virginia, like the best in the best in Virginia against the best in West Virginia. And I think, West Virginia is going to travel well. And I think that can help really, fill out that environment. And, we want it to be an all-inclusive, all-weekend event where, you are there for the entire weekend. We've got great sponsors and community members that are going to, certainly help us, on being able to host people going forward, and, providing affordable avenues for families to drive up here and, come up here to Winchester for this event. But with Shenandoah University, the amenities we have, the connections that I have in the area to help really put this event together, I'm already excited to see what it's going to be next year, really knowing where this is going to go. And so all that's exciting. And around the corner, we have, our NCAA live periods coming up. We help run and we host alongside the VISA Association, 65 best public, 65 best private schools playing in an NCAA live recruiting event that last year had over 200 coaches. First guy to walk in the building last year was Buzz Williams. I had the biggest cup of coffee I've ever seen, so, it was,
was he sweating?
Oh yeah. It was, it's the middle of June though. And, but yeah, Buzz is walking in at 8:00 in the morning there to see Latrell Allman, playing in Petersburg. And, that's
I saw him too.
Yeah.
After the Skyline game. Yeah. Oh my.
Yeah. And he was our Mr. Basketball for the state of Virginia. And, all of our coaches voted on that, and unbelievable kid, excited to see his future there. And, so BCAV, just, continuing to try to get more coaches involved and get more coaches a part of that. And for us, it's continuing to create this environment of like, why wouldn't you join? And that's really what we're focused on, is continuing to add member service benefits and add to all the reasons as to why you should be a part of this. And, last year, our inaugural coaches clinic in September, keynote speakers, Mike D'Antoni, two-time NBA coach of the year, is kicking off in Charlottesville, and last year we had a little over 100 coaches attend that. Goal is to get that thing in the thousands, like, the one I'm going to speak at in October in Michigan, the Michigan Coach Association. They've been around for 50 years. You got Dusty May, Tom Izzo, and, the 5,000 some coaches are going to be in that, and so that's what these things can grow to. And we're absolutely dedicated to, helping build those, all those events into to those type of environments. And, we want Virginia to be, as good, if not better than the other state associations around the country. To, kids deserve this, coaches deserve this, players, communities, everyone deserves it. So just putting it all together to bring it to life.
One highlight from that All-Star weekend, Coach Ed Young. Man, what a guy.
Ed's the man. Ed's the man.
Yeah. He walks into the gym, and I'm like, hey, Ed, because we're sitting next to him for like 4 games, and I've always heard you refer to Ed Young, and then we get to talking, and funny part, I'll get to this in a second, but we get to talking, and he's like, yeah, I'm the head coach down at Smithfield. I'm like, oh, so you beat Zach once? And he's like, oh, this is my first year.
Yeah, so he got out of coaching for a few years, and then he got that itch, man. Ed's won more games than I think we can count. He's changed so many lives, man. For us with BCAV, how fortunate we are to have him a part of that. And Ed has been so influential and, getting, programs in the 757 involved with BCAV and, helping, expand us in all of those regions. And yeah, Ed's awesome, man. Did you ever get on that show with Ed? He said he'd bring you number 2 in the state of Virginia.
Not yet.
Did you ever get that joke? Because his show would still be number 1.
Yeah. No. Well, here's the funny part. So they're recording on Sunday. Hatfield and Ed,
he was doing it in the hotel room.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. And he was like, I met Kirby. Pulled up the picture. He's like, Kirby comes up to me like, what did I do? It was great because I see him in the press room. I'm like, Ed Young, I guess, because I just thought he called games on NFHS. I didn't realize he was like a basketball coach.
Oh, he's multiple-time state winner, like close to 1,000 wins. I mean, just world-class act, man. Ed's fantastic.
In talking to him at Vibrissa, his resume, as you just alluded to, incredible.
Oh, if I can be half the coach of Ed Young, I'd have done it right. I mean, Ed is great, man. He's just such a good guy. I mean, you think about too. I mean, he's up here with us all weekend. He's got the longest drive out of anybody, and Ed is, all he got out of the whole weekend was to take a pan of ziti home from the leftover banquet, Ed is, man, I can't say enough about him, man. I'm hoping you get on that show, and he's a really talented announcer too. Man. I mean, he's called a lot of state games. He called our game last summer at Petersburg, or when we were playing Petersburg in the East Coast Live. So Ed called that game with Matt. But yeah, no, those guys are great, man. And what they do for player recognition and all of these things are so important. And all of that work. That's what I mean, right? And media members are part of BCAV. And just working with everyone to help promote everything great that's going on, and providing players with the recognition they deserve, the opportunities that they deserve, and, providing services, benefits, mentoring, resources for coaches. You shouldn't have to get on YouTube to go for anything. You got it right in your portal, So we're really excited and excited to continue to keep building momentum.
And you and Ed, if you ever had the opportunity to play against each other, I'm sure that'd be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I would love that, man. Just anytime you could play a great program, great coaches, and that'd be a chess match. Just I'd probably have a little fun with it or something. Hold the ball in the corner, run some 4 corners, mess with Ed. But Ed, that's the thing about Ed though, man. Like, there's nothing Ed hadn't seen. So there's no game plan you're going to roll out. Ed's going to have a counter for everything. So that'd be the longest game of chess ever. But no, man, he's class act, man. We're so fortunate to have him.
So, Coach, wrapping up, still doing stuff with BCAV. I'm sure you're going to get with your team at some point. I'm not sure what that timeline looks like, but what's just sort of down the line. I mean, not really looking ahead to next high school basketball season because we're not even to summer yet, but just what's on the agenda. I know maybe people are talking, maybe what if Handley can go back to back or something like that? I would imagine it starts with the off season. What's sort of coming up down the line for you all?
Yeah, and my message to any of those, people or our guys as well is that, focusing on that and worrying about that is something that could have cost us the championship, right? And so I will constantly recenter our group and our community to the goal is not the ceiling. The goal is to continue to raise the floor, right? And we got a great floor right now. And we lost some guys, right, which is going to lower the floor, and then we got to raise the floor back up again, right? And so, just staying focused on that and every single day, one day at a time. And that's how you accomplish those things. If you're like, I'm very weary of and do not believe in as a person in expectations. If you expect something, like if I expect the Cowboys to draft Caleb Downs, I will be disappointed or just like, oh, okay, they drafted him if it happens. Whereas if I just, let the draft happen, and then we get Caleb Downs. Now I'm going to be fired up, Josh. I'm going to be real fired up, right? But if you have expectations, if they actually come to life, the level of joy is not the same as if you had standards. So you just have to have standards in the way that you operate, and those standards are going to help you reach those goals. But we have to be very weary of expectations because it's either bound for disappointment right? Or lack of fulfillment, enjoyment, pride when it actually happens because you expected it to happen. You can't expect anything. You have to have standards. You have to have a way that you operate. You have to look to raise those, right? Raise your operations, the way you operate, your standards every single day. And then, let come to life what's meant to come to life when that happens. So, we'll be starting up here pretty soon. Got some guys running track, got some guys playing some AAU, and they're on some good teams, and feel good about that. The coach is working with them, and guys are training at Fast Sports Performance, and so gave guys a few weeks here to kind of figure out, all right, what's everybody doing, what's availability look like. But for me, it's why I've always liked going in the morning. Is what's your excuse at 7 a.m? You ain't at Fast at 7 a.m. You're not at AAU at 7 a.m. You know where else at 7 a.m. So that's been our culture for a long time, and Raleigh and I will be moving into our new house here in a few weeks. So getting moved in, and I'll be in the city now, and be a lot closer to school, and be able to get in there in the mornings here again, starting at 7 o'clock, and early May, and then a few weeks after that, our Capital Hoop Summer League schedule will start at DeMatha, and plan on going to JMU team camp, obviously playing in the VHSL live event at the St. James, and playing in the East Coast live event that with BCAV we helped run, and so playing in some of those events, as well as hoping to bring back bringing back the the Blacktop Summer League. So
that was fun.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, and we'd love to have you out there permanently as the official MC this time. So and get you out there to the Blacktop. We're looking to have 12 teams this year instead of 8. Right. So we'll have all three teams going. Hope to get Kenny Gordon back out there with the barbecue and the food trucks. So
that was good. That was good.
So yeah, food trucks, DJ, Josh Kirby on the mic, and 12 quality basketball teams playing outside, and competing and battling on the blacktop. So looking forward to bringing that back free for the community. One kid's coming out, one people coming out, get some food, watch some outdoor basketball, and get this game back out on the blacktop. So a lot of things coming, and all going to start ramping up here pretty soon. But where the culture is, I don't worry about guys on their own when we're not with them. And I know they're all working. I know they're all doing things they need to be. And so part of putting a schedule together is weighing, like, will we burn them out? Right. And so that's why I love 7 a.m, 45 minutes, everything you got for those 45 minutes, and, do that consistently and let that compound over time. So we'll be starting that pretty soon.
And before you know it, I know it seems like a long ways away, but in the snap of a finger, we will be right back at high school basketball
season. Sure will.
So
yeah, it's coming fast.
So I know there's probably a lot of stuff you'll be doing Apple Blossom for recognition as well. So wishing you and the team all the best with that. But again, state champion head coach for the John Handley Judges, Zach Harrell-Zook, live to tape, that is, in the Icon Media Studios. Coach, appreciate your time with me all season. I know it's been kind of difficult trying to pin you down at times, but we've made it happen, and always great conversations, and future conversations to come, I'm sure, and looking forward to what is to come in the summer and next year as well.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, man. And thank you to Icon letting us get in here, and thank you to everything you've done for us throughout the year, and I know that you'll continue to do for not just us, but all the community and all of the communities you're impacting through what you do. So everyone plays a pivotal piece in that. Saying it takes a village, that's what the village looks like. So
appreciate the kind words for sure. But thank you so much for tuning in to this interview with head coach for the John Handley Judges, Zach Harrell-Zook. Coach, thanks once again, and we will catch you next time.